Hello and welcome to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show right here on WDBO 107.3 FM, AM 580, and as always, streaming live right there in your WDBO app. I'm sitting here with Larry Perry, the one and only Magic Mechanic. If you've got a question for him, just give me a call. Something going on with your car, something going on with your truck, your van, your jet ski, anything with a motor, anything that you rely on to get you from A to B. Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic, is the guy for you. The number to call is 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. As always, you can send in your question via the WDBO app, the free open mic right there inside our app. Download it from the App Store or the Play Store. Click the open mic button, send it in your way, and Larry will answer it the only way he can. As easy as it can for you to understand. If he can explain it so I can understand it, then he can definitely get it to you in the way that you need it to you. 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-9326. Got a couple of people on hold right now. Larry, how you doing today?
We're doing good. I'm a little sunburnt from my fishing trip, but other than that, I'm still kicking.
I was going to ask you, any boat emergencies where you got to pop the hood and do the old Magic Mechanic thing to get you back on shore, or everything worked out well?
Understandably, those couple big old Caterpillar diesels done a fine job. So
that's good.
So we did real well. I had a good time. Hey, folks, it's 3 o'clock. I'm Larry Perry, and you're tuned in to the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. So you new listeners know this is an interactive automotive and mechanical advice program where we help you with your car problems and, well, just about anything mechanical. And it's been our pleasure to do so for almost 32 years now. Me personally, I'm an automotive shop owner, and I've been a master auto technician since 1982. To make the program work, we need your calls, and the lines are open at 844-580-9326. And this is the time where I tell folks, remembering a phone number for me is probably a difficult challenge. I can probably remember a vehicle identification number, but a phone number just kind of escapes me. But if you can remember the 844 part and the station that you're listening to, which is 580 WDBO, all you will need to do is convert the numbers, the 9326, to letters, so it's just 844-580-WDBO, and then Josh will go ahead and get your call indexed. And remember, all your calls and your car questions, they do get indexed, and then they get placed on our new Magic Mechanic YouTube channel. So other folks searching for answers like yours will be able to get the same needed information. Think about that. Folks will be able to play your car questions back and hear my comments along, years and years from now. So all that information will always be out there to help other folks as well as you. Dash warning lights, poor fuel economy, oil consumption. It's getting warm out there. A lot of air conditioning questions, are coming across my lap here, especially email-wise. And AC's, air conditioning is a lot different than it used to be. These newer cars are all using variable displacement compressors, and the problems that they have are a lot different than the AC problems we had on vehicles in the past. So, and a lot of times, I had one email I answered earlier today where I know it was completely misdiagnosed. The lady had been given a $5,600 estimate on her AC, and I know they missed it by a mile. She didn't have the work done at this tire store, thank God. But the thing is, it's not going to cost you one single dime to pick that phone up and give us a call and just run it past me. I mean, they could be your neighbor that works on your car or whatever, but, if there's any doubt whatsoever about a diagnosis that you've received, folks, just by giving me a call and running it past me, it could save you literally thousands and thousands of dollars. I do this to try to, help keep the shop busy, of course. But I'm here to try to help people from getting ripped off, and that's why I do the program. Plus, I've made a lot of friends over the years, too. so it all works out. But any of those types of problems, AC, vibrations, warranty questions, I like the old antique and classic cars as well. I had one from a 28 Ford Model A, and the guy was asking if we could change the tires on it. Put new tires on the rims. Well, they're almost like a motorcycle tire. So I actually told him to go to a motorcycle shop. They can, dismount the tires because it's pretty much the same as replacing a motorcycle tire. They put the inner liner in, a new inner tube, and put the tire on there. Same thing. And plus, they'll be able to balance those tires just like they would a motorcycle wheel and tire. So, but that's something that I would not want to get involved with, because somebody like, that does motorcycle tires, it's almost identical. It's just a spoked wheel, so, but that's the type of, answers, we try to help people with, whether we make a dime off of it or not. It's not all about money. And I believe anybody that's listened to this program over the last 32 years knows that, I just have fun trying to help folks with their cars, and luckily we're able and fortunate enough to be able to do that. And remember, now we take your calls on any gas, hybrid, electric, or diesel vehicle. And remember, I have a complete database of all the listed recalls and technical service bulletins from around 1980 to current date. All you need to do is give us a call, 844-580 WDBO, and give our producer Josh year, make, and model of your vehicle, brief description of your problem. You'll be placed on a brief hold, and we will get to you in the order that we have received your call. Also, remember, for immediate help, you can call the shop number and speak to my good friend and general manager, JD, at 407-629-2661. Also want to mention the open mic option. You can go to WDBO.com on your smartphone and download the app if you don't already have it. And you can leave us an open mic car question. Just give us the year, make, and model, the issue that you're having, and we'll get to those at the bottom of about the 4 o'clock news break. Now, remember, you only got about 30 seconds to give it to us, and then I'll go ahead and when we get to it, I'll explain what and all's going on with your vehicle or answer your question. Also, I believe we still have open mics from 2 weeks ago that we could not get to because we had so many during the one program. Hey, you can also ask a car question by emailing me, Larry@magicmechanic.com. I can't guarantee we'll get to all of them, but if we need them during the course of the program, I will go ahead and read your email on the air. And if I can't fit it in, I will answer it like I have 153 today so far. I will get it answered by early Monday morning. So with that being said, we're going to go here. We're going to stay here in Orlando, and we're going to talk to Paul. Paul, what's going on with your Subaru Forester?
Hi, Larry. This is Paul. I came in to chat with you a few weeks ago. This is an ongoing situation. Initially, was leaking Freon at the TXV valve, the low and high pressure pipes. It looked like the low pressure pipe. So I put in new O-rings, and that was about under a year and a half ago. It's been doing okay, but I knew it was still leaking because I kept seeing the dye come out. So I just said I'll just keep going until something happens. And a few weeks ago, I knew it was leaking and lost all the cooling. So I ended up, I had 2 spare O-rings, brand new Subaru O-rings, took the system apart again, put in new O-rings, put it together, and my wife had to go use the car, so I kind of had to do it quickly, and I knew it wasn't really right when I did the evacuation test, so it did lose Freon again. So when I got it back, I evacuated again. Well, there was nothing left in it, and I pumped it down, and I watched it, and that needle just kind of kept up. It went up in about 10 minutes. So I took the unit apart again, and I put in the old seal, which I still had, but the old one seemed to be better. And I put it together, and I tightened the bolt a little tighter than I usually do. I know that there's no torque requirement on it, so, it's all aluminum, so I kind of go gently. But I tightened it more than I normally would have. And I pulled the vacuum on it for 45 minutes, and then I watched it for 35 minutes, and that needle didn't budge. I mean, it looked really good. So I tanked it up again with Freon, and everything's working good. And I did look at it at that area with the UV light, But I assume I still have dye in it, even though I didn't put any more dye in it. I did have dye in it. I don't see anything coming out. Maybe I'm actually fixed, but this, I know what you told me about O-rings not always working right, and I thought I was going to have to maybe, but I seem to be good right now with the O-ring that I took out of there, and I don't know what made the difference, but it seems to be doing well.
Yeah. Paul, I tell you, that is a real pain when it comes to the O-rings on these AC systems. So many of them are, they can vary in size. You can go and get a special part number from Subaru, and you can open up the package and mic it compared to the one you take off, and, it may be a thousandth thinner, in some cases, and you're just sitting there going, well, these things, O-rings are made in bulk, and there's no guarantee that one is going to be exactly perfect for a replacement of an old one that you remove. And chances are, I think you pretty much answered your own question, really. The old ones that you had were probably a little bit thicker than the ones that you got from Subaru. We have AC O-ring selections, metric ones, SAEs, the standard size ones. And I always, I will take what is supposed to be on some of these cars, and the O-rings are just too thin. You don't want to go through all this work. And I'm going to tell you, as expensive as refrigerant is, you don't want to be losing a refrigerant nowadays just for the fun of it. You're dealing with an old 134 system, but I'll tell you what, you lose the YF refrigerant, you're talking $150 a pound for this new refrigerant that comes in these newer cars. So, you could sit there on some of these vehicles, you take a big truck and you didn't fix the AC correctly and it leaks out, you could cost yourself $700 or $800 in refrigerant just by having a leak. So it's to a point where you better make sure that those O-rings are the correct thickness, or you'll wind up in some serious, serious issues. 134, that's a gimme right now, even though it's about $40, $50 a pound. You lose the YF123, that'll sting a bunch. Paul, congratulations. It sounds like you were successful on that AC repair. Next time, well, you'll know to mic those O-rings before you try them.
He'll get back to you as soon as he can. Larry's shop, of course, that number is 407-629-2661. Every single question that gets asked on this show is archived in Larry Perry's YouTube channel. And Larry, you mentioned it last segment, but something you didn't mention is that YouTube segment you have there. You have the convenience of going back. If you were Paul in that last segment and you got 75% of your answer but missed just a bit of it, you can always go back on YouTube, pull it up, and get real detail with your answers.
Absolutely, yes. So what Logan tries to do is he will take the edited version of the program and try to put a whole entire show together, from the questions that we get, minus the weather and the news and the traffic and the commercials and all that. And then he takes individual calls, and then he indexes those. Let's just say, for an example, like that when there was Subaru Forester AC issue, that's going to be on the YouTube channel, for forever. Just put in Magic Mechanic YouTube and you'll be able to pull up all the different shows and programs, or you can go off to the side of that and put in Honda stalling problem or Honda Civic, whatever, and you can pull up it, because there's literally hundreds of those YouTube videos that are now out, so we're covering a lot of information, on a lot of different vehicles, so it's really kind of cool. I don't know why we didn't do this years ago, but when you're somewhat internet inept like I am, you need a young man and an expert, so to speak, that knows how to do all this stuff. So, but it's working out really good so far. Let's talk to Mark. Mark, tell me about this Suburban that you want to buy. If we run into the bottom of the hour, I'm going to hold you over. Go ahead.
Hey, Larry. So it's a crazy story now, but I was trying to buy this 2003 Suburban from a girlfriend of my wife's. It's a 424, and she said 424. I said 424. They don't make a 424. You must be thinking of, I don't know, something else. She goes, oh, no, it's a... So anyway, I looked it up, and there is a 424. But while I was on hold, I told my wife, hey, I'm on hold with Larry. I got to ask him about this. And she goes, oh, I just told her to sell it. So she sold it. But so I'm ticked off, sort of. But is that a good engine? As long as I got you.
Well, that must have been a 6.0 liter engine. Yeah, the 6.0 is a nice motor. I mean, they done a good job. Most of them were put in 1-ton vehicles, though. I mean, they were put in like, if it was a gas version, they were put in the 1-ton dually pickup trucks and stuff like that. They mostly used those engines for heavy hauling. You'd find them in a lot of the 1-ton GM 3500 series dually pickup trucks that people pull horse trailers and stuff like that with, or big boats. But most of them were used in dual rear wheel 1-ton applications. To get one in a Suburban like that, it must have been a 3500, a 25 or a 3500 series. So it would have been a heavy duty towing vehicle is what it would basically be for. So if you're going to be pulling a travel trailer, horse trailer, or anything like that, it would have been an excellent vehicle for that. And those motors do, they hold up. They hold up pretty good. I appreciate your call, Mark.
Exactly what's going on. Larry, how you doing today?
We're doing good. Just want to let the listeners know that there evidently was phone issues earlier today with the call-in lines. They seem to be working okay now. So if you all want to try to get your car question in, it's pretty easy to do. 844-580-WDBO, 844-580-9326. Don't be a stranger. We don't bite. First-time callers are great. And, folks, we love to listen. We love to have our calls from the ladies out there in the listening audience as well. I know, you'll figure, it's a guy thing. No, it's not. Ladies drive cars, too. So if you have any issues or questions, we welcome your calls as well. Let's head out to Sanford. Let's talk to Tom. Tom, tell us what's going on with this 2000 Tahoe.
Well, it's running great. It's got about 200,000 miles on it. I was thinking about switching over to AMSOIL, and I didn't know if that would be an issue, and if it isn't, what weight should I put in it? It's got a 5.7.
Okay. What oil have you been using in it?
Oh, crap. I can't even remember. I think
okay, that's
1030,
good.
Something like that.
That's good enough. That's good enough. Listen, let me tell you what. If the oil has been changed on a regular basis, and I'm assuming that it has, if you've got 200,000 mile on the daggone thing, this is what I tell folks. When it comes to switching a higher mileage motor over, there's two things. Well, in your case, there's a few things we have to keep in mind. One of them is, conventional oils, the hydrocrack synthetics. All these oils will leave some debris behind. It's just part of the course of the oil. It's just what happens. The oil will start sticking to, as the oil starts wearing, it will start sticking to components inside the engine, like rocker arms, inside of the valve covers, lifter valleys, things like that are notorious for collecting, the old oil that's been used in the engine. So it does accumulate in there. I'm not going to call it all sludge. A lot of it is, but some of it is more or less a carbon that's left behind from these inferior oils, in my opinion. And when you put AMSOIL into an engine, not only does AMSOIL run to heat and friction and pretty much eliminate any further wear inside of a motor, what it does is it cleans like nobody's business. I mean, it really scrubs the inside of a motor. It'll literally make a motor spotless just by using the AMSOIL in the engine. And what winds up happening is, and I always try to forewarn folks, and you got to think about this, when you got an oil that is that aggressive of cleaning as well as lubricating, what you run into is a situation where you got to keep in mind, an oil filter is only made to, remove X amount of particles from, engine oil over a period of time. And then what will happen is when an oil filter gets restricted from all the debris that's being cleaned up inside the motor, there's no magic light or warning light or anything like that to come on to warn you that, it has reached its maximum capacity. See, the oil filter at that point will go into a bypass mode and become absolutely worthless because the element itself is actually restricted from everything that the AMSOIL is cleaning up. So this is how we do this. In most cases on most vehicles, I tell folks to run it 1 year or 15,000 mile. But when you're talking about a first oil change with AMSOIL, especially on a higher mileage motor, I tell folks, listen, your best bet is to check that oil at about 7,500 miles. Now, what you're doing is you want to look at the discoloration of the oil. Listen, if it is just an amber color, you wipe it on your finger and it's still transparent, or if you can see your dipstick through the oil itself, you're fine. There's no problem whatsoever. I would suggest you keep using the oil. But if that oil is just as black as roofing tar, I'm going to tell you, me personally, I would do an early oil change on the vehicle. I wouldn't continue using the oil because there's a good chance that filter's plugged up if that oil is that black and dirty. And you got to remember, I don't like to use flushes. A lot of people say, well, run a flush through the motor. I don't like that because you can knock so much debris loose at one time it can plug the oil sump up in the engine. So just by letting the oil itself clean the engine naturally over a few thousand miles is really the best way to handle that. And in your case, that's what I would suggest. You got to use your own common sense. If you 7,500 mile, if that oil is blacker than the tires on your car, it might be a good idea to go ahead and change that oil and filter, early that first time around. Now, I will tell you one other thing, and it's good. I like this call because it's very important to know. AMSOIL is pretty much a cure-all for any engine. From the time you put it in the motor, you're generally stopping any future potential wear with that engine. It's just the way it works. As long as everything in the engine is in good shape, that oil is going to protect what you have left. Now, there is one other thing, and I do like to point this out. When you put the AMSOIL in an engine that has got higher mileage on it, I've already explained in detail how this oil cleans like nobody's business. Now, there's one other part of this engine that gets cleaned that a lot of people don't really take into consideration. And one of them is you got a rear main seal, you got a front main seal on the engine, that seals around the crankshaft. Well, these are lip seals, and they've actually got a small cavity in the inside of them. You got an outer part of this lip seal and an inner part. Inner part is what prevents the oil from actually passing through and causing an oil leak. Over a period of time with hydrocracked petroleum and wannabe synthetics, what happens is those seals will actually start getting hard and brittle. And when you start running AMSOIL in an engine, it's not uncommon on a really higher mileage motor to see some little bit of seepage for a few weeks. And I'm just going to tell you it's just the way it is. And let me explain why. See, when the AMSOIL gets in between those lips on these rubber seals that are already hard as a rock from the previous oil that's been used, you've got these little fine particles working around on the outer edges of the crankshaft and around on the seal. So you've got debris floating around between the crankshaft and the seal, making it imperfect. And therefore, some seepage could very well be expected during the first few weeks or first few thousand miles. I've seen this a million times. And then what happens is the AMSOIL, it's kind of like a miracle oil. What it does is after it cleans this stuff up around these seals, it will also goes and it starts conditioning the seal to bring back the elastic properties of the seal. It makes it more pliable. So it softens the seal, and then the spring that goes around these seals actually are able to pull tighter, and then any seepage generally just disappears. I'm not going to tell anybody to use AMSOIL for a stop leak, but it's probably the best there is on the market. So I do not represent the product as such. But see what it is, AMSOIL was smart. When they built this polyalpha olefin synthetic oil, they actually added an additive, which is another synthetic additive called ester. And the ester, when it comes into contact with rubber, it literally reconditions the rubber. Like on these seals, rear main seal, front main seal, the expensive oil leaks. It actually conditions those seals, brings back all that elastic properties of the seal itself. The outer retaining spring that's, pulls the seal tight, it's able to pull the seal a little tighter, the whole 9 yards. It's just a beautiful thing. I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for way over 40 years, working on cars and stuff. I am the biggest skeptic of anything that ever come across in the automotive industry. But this is the most amazing product that I have ever used, and I have used it specifically and thousands and thousands of customers since 1992. And I'm telling you, it is the most amazing product I've ever seen for an internal combustion engine ever made. But, as far as switching it over, I can't stand to ride my mountain bike without Amsoil on the chain. So I'm a real Amsoil believer because I've seen what it's done and how it's benefited people over the years and saved them literally countless thousands of dollars. When you sit back and you think about some of these fleet companies, it's got, 50, 60, 80 vehicles, they're out on the road, and they were getting rid of them every 100,000 mile. Now they're keeping them 300,000-400,000 mile just because they switched them over to Amsoil, and they know they can depend on them for that length of time. So it saves folks money. It's nice to know that there is a product out there that actually prevents any future wear. Even, if you buy a used vehicle, first thing you need to do, put Amsoil in it. If it's running and driving great, put Amsoil in it. That way you pretty much stop future potential wear with that vehicle at that point, and it's going to make that used car a very, very good value, as opposed to having to drive at 20,000 miles. Now you got to spend $5,000 on a transmission or $10,000 on an engine. It just, like I said, it's not a cheap product to buy, but what it saves you in the long run is a fortune. So you can't beat it. It's the cheapest oil you'll ever use when you get right down to it. Hey, Tom Sanford, listen, thanks for your call. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, Tom. That opens up a line for you to hop on the air with Larry Perry, the Magic Mechanic, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO, a little over 45 minutes away from our open mic section, so send those in if you can, right there in the free WDBO app. Just get your question through the open mic section. We'll go through those. We'll play them on the air. Larry will answer them, or if you want to hop on the old-fashioned way, hit the phone calls here, 844-580-9326 to hop on with Larry Perry right now. We'll be right back with more of the Magic Mechanic Radio Show on WDBO. It is live every Saturday from 3 to 5 right there in the WDBO app. Sitting here with Larry Perry, the one who answers all your automotive questions. Something going on with your dashboard, something going on with throwing up an error that you don't know what it is, and you want to know exactly how to fix it. Now is your time to get on the air with Larry Perry. Call 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. We're about 30 minutes away from going through our open mics. Get those in, too. We'll be going through those just after the 4:30 news segment. Let's head up to Claremont, where Bill's calling in about his Corolla. Go ahead, Bill.
Hi, Larry.
Hey.
I have a 2013 Toyota Corolla Sport model, and I ran off the road on the passenger side and bent the passenger's front strut. I had 2 new strut assemblies installed, and now it's making like a soft clunking noise while driving over rough pavement. I don't know what could be causing this soft clunking noise.
Okay. So you had... strut assemblies put on the vehicle. Now, is it quieter than what it was? Or you said one was bent, right?
Right. When I ran off the road on the passenger side, it bent the front strut assembly, but it wasn't making any noise that I'm aware of.
Okay.
So I had 2 new strut assemblies put on, the coil springs and top housing, Baron and everything. Everything was new from AutoZone. And after I had that done, it may have been doing it before. I don't know. I don't remember. But it's making a soft clunking noise while driving over rough pavement.
Okay. Now, on the top of the strut, that's usually referred to as a strut plate. It's a mounting plate is what it is, and that's what's got the bearing inside of it so that the strut can actually turn, with the wheel itself. If there's a problem with that bearing, or that strut plate, it could make a noise, if there's an issue with it. Other thing that could cause you to have a clunking noise, depending on the impact of when it got hit or whatever, a lower ball joint could make a noise. And then you've got what they call sway bar links, where there's a bar that runs from one lower control arm to the other. And then the middle of that control arm is actually bolted to the body or the subframe of the vehicle, and that's for your sway bar. But the links on each end of that, if they're worn, they can make a clicky, ticky, knocking, a thud type of noise, a clunking type of noise, But a person would need to look at the sway bar links and then check the lower ball joints. And if there's nothing wrong with them, I would probably suspect that there's an issue with one of the struts. They make those strut assemblies, they mass produce them. Who knows if you get a bad one or not. Do you know if they were a brand name strut like a Monroe or something like that, or was it just a generic, most inexpensive one you could buy? How did that work out?
They got it at AutoZone, so I don't really know what the name of it was. They said there's a better one. AutoZone has KBY or something like that. Yeah,
KBY is that's more of a higher brand name, so to speak.
So if I was going to change the struts, I would go over to the KBY because I heard that's a little bit better of a strut assembly.
Yeah, KYB.
How do I know if it would be the strut or whatever it would be? How would I know?
Bill, there's only so many things in there that can make noise. Either your sway bar links have got some play in them or they're worn. And they're on each one of your lower control arms. You'll see where they hook to a bar that runs all the way around the whole front of the vehicle back to the other control arm on the other side of the vehicle. The links that actually connect that sway bar to your control arms, it's real common that those links go bad. The other thing that needs to be checked is somebody needs to put a floor jack underneath the lower control arms on each side of the car one at a time, and then grab a hold of the wheel and see if you can lift it up and down. If there's any play there, that is going to be from those strut plates on the top of that strut assembly, or either the lower ball joints have got excessive play in them. And when you smacked whatever you did off the road, it could have injured that lower ball joint. So that it's very important that those get checked. If everything else is good and tight, chances are it's probably a sway bar link that got whacked. And just for future information, if you were to run into something like that again and you do damage something in the front end, this wasn't too bad if it's just struts, but in a lot of cases you might want to get your insurance company involved with it too, just to make sure that if it does get expensive, at least you got insurance there to back it up with. Bill, we appreciate your call. Thanks for calling in.
Thank you so much, Bill. That opens up a line for you, 844-580-9326. Give Larry 9326. Larry, giving out advice for free. That's an interesting business model.
Yeah. How many people do that, huh? Hey, welcome to the second hour of the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. It's a show where you call in, you ask your automotive questions or any mechanical question, and you can't beat the price because it's free. That number is 844-580-9326. Best way to remember it is the 844, remember that, and the station you're listening to, which is 580 WDBO. So it's 844-580 WDBO, and that'll get you through to get your car question indexed. Also, we take your automotive questions and my comments, and we place them on our new Magic Mechanic YouTube channel. So other folks maybe, seeking the same help that you look for will be able to pull it up online and actually be able to get the same information. Plus, you can play it back anytime you want. They take the questions from the weekend program and they get them all edited and back up on the channel usually by midweek. And that number, if you'd like to call in and give all this a try, ain't gonna cost you anything. 580 WDBO. And to speak to JD at the Magic Mechanic Shop, that number's 407-629-2661. Folks, our sponsors are very important to the show. We all pitch in to bring you the program every week, so if you enjoy it, please patronize our sponsors and tell them that you heard about them on the Magic Mechanic Radio Show. Orlando Auto Upholstery, interior, convertible tops, carpet seats, door panels, anything interior-wise. Maybe you are in the middle of a restoration project in the middle of your garage at home, and you're just trying to figure out what you're going to do with the interior. Well, your best bet is to give Orlando Auto Upholstery a call, or just visit them online at orlandoautoupholstery.com. They do fabulous work. I mean, if you've got a worn driver's seat, you take the car in there, they pop the seat out of it, they'll pull the upholstery off the bottom of the seat or the back, whichever or both, and they'll match the material of the seat up identical, and then they will go ahead and do whatever pattern that they need to, and a lot of times when folks do that, on a nice SUV or a luxury car that they want to keep for a while, a lot of times they have both front seats done. Back seats hardly ever get used, as we all know. And, you start off with a vehicle that's got like a brand new interior again. You can't beat that. OrlandoAutoUpholstery.com. Amsoil synthetic lubricants for your car, truck, van, SUV, boat, motorcycle, tractors, bulldozers, lawn equipment, and the list goes on. If you use Amsoil, you literally prevent wear. Internal engine wear is literally a thing of the past. You can use these components as long as you want without having to replace them. You got to look at it like this. If you keep a vehicle a long period of time, you're going to have an occasional alternator, a starter. You're going to need a hose or some belts and tires and brakes. These are all wear items, that are eventually going to have to be replaced. You got a lot of stuff on any vehicle, whether it be an electric or a diesel or anything. There's enough stuff on it. Power windows quit working. The electronic steering's not working right. These are all things that fail on all vehicles, over a period of time. Front end, suspension, shock, struts. It goes on and on and on. And, it doesn't matter whether it's an electric vehicle, a gas vehicle, a diesel vehicle. But you've got all these other little things to keep you busy. Why in the world would you want to be subjected to an engine or transmission on top of it? Well, Amsoil is going to prevent that from happening. Once you put the Amsoil in an engine, it actually runs to heat and friction. It does not release until it gets cold. If you don't believe me, put Amsoil in your engine and check it when it's hot. It's going to show you it's a quart low until the engine gets cold. That's the only time this oil will release from heated objects inside the engine itself. That's why it is such a fountain of youth. It actually works backwards of every oil you will find in the parts store. Absolutely backwards. The other oils, they get hot then and they run away from heat and friction. And that's why you have excessive engine wear. Amsoil runs to heat and friction and stays with it till the part actually becomes cool. Think about it. It works backwards. That's why it is the fountain of youth for an engine. And Amsoil actually warranties your engine against lubrication failure as long as you use their oil. Think about that. That's an incredible statement, an incredible product. To find out more, go to amsoil.com. Jasper Engines and Transmissions. When it does come time for an engine or a transmission, a big high dollar ticket type of repair, the one thing that you want to keep in mind is if you're going to keep that vehicle and you're going to replace an engine or transmission, you better make it count because it's not cheap anymore, folks. Replacing an engine or transmission is a big, expensive venture nowadays. Now, if you're going to do that, you want to make sure that you've got the best warranty there is available, period. And you want to make sure, darn sure, that you're using a very experienced long time in business builder or supplier of the engine or transmission. That's why we use the Jasper engines and transmissions. They come with a 100,000-mile nationwide warranty. When you pay the bill and we shake your hand, we know that you've got the best product money can buy for a repower when you drive off our parking lot. It is the best warranty from the best remanufacturing company in the United States. And like I said, it doesn't matter if you were to have a failure, no matter where it would be in the continental United States, Jasper's there. They're going to take care of it, parts and labor, to make sure you're back on the road at no charge, period. And that's how they stand behind their product. To find out more about Jasper engines or transmissions, go to jasperengines.com. And last but not least, the Magic Mechanic Auto Service Center, located in Orlando, Florida. Engines, transmissions, brakes, suspension, steering, electrical repairs, and, of course, AMSOIL synthetic lubricants. You can visit magicmechanic.com. You can also email me, larry@magicmechanic.com. Looks like we're going to John here in Orlando, 2005 Town and Country. What you got going on, John?
Oh, I got a problem with my car not starting, and basically what I did is I had a problem with the starter a while back, and I thought I had a dead spot in it, so I parked it the other day, came out, and nothing, no clicking, no anything. So I said, the starter finally went out. So I put a new starter in there, and still won't start. And so I jumpered on the relay, number 87 and 30, and the starter would turn over, but the car won't start.
Okay.
And the only other thing I would think is maybe it might be the ignition switch. And then while I was waiting on you, I just remembered that many, many, many years ago, I bought the van new. I had an alarm system put in, and it quit working many years ago. And it had a ignition cutoff in it. And I just thinking maybe it might be that. But how would I test the ignition switch? Or is it an easy way?
Well, on that one there, you're going to have what is called when you go to crank that vehicle, you're going to have your starter relay. You're going to have your ASD relay, which is an automatic shutdown relay that's got to power up, and electric fuel pump relay that's got to power up. Now, what a person is going to need to do, now, do you have it to where it will crank now?
Not when I turn the key, though.
Okay. Well, there's probably, on that one there, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it may have if somebody added an anti-theft system to the vehicle, it did not have a passkey system. But that would be my guess. I mean, because if it had a passkey system, that would have been all the anti-theft you needed for the vehicle. You're going to probably need to get underneath the dash and look at the wiring harness and see where they spliced in to this aftermarket anti-theft system. There very well could be an issue there if you're not able to get the power signal from the ignition switch out to the relay itself. What I would do is I would pull that relay out, get somebody in the vehicle, take you a 12-volt test light, and literally go into each one of the terminals that the relay plugs into, and have somebody just keep turning the key on and off, keep to the crank position and off to see if you're actually getting a power signal there. If you're not, then most likely there is something from the ignition switch that's been spliced going into an anti-theft box of some sort. I hate those things. You never know what you're going to wind up with one of them aftermarket alarm systems. They can be a real pain. But I would look to see where somebody's cut some wires and actually spliced in some other stuff. And usually the first thing my techs wind up doing is trying to cut all that stuff out of there, get rid of the box, and actually hook it back up the way that it was. but you're going to need to probe that. Or either you're going to need to probe the starter relay terminals underneath of it there to find out if you're getting power out there to it or not when you turn the key to the crank position. You're going to need to either do that, or you're going to need to have a wiring schematic in order to show you which wire it is from the ignition switch that's actually exciting the relay. So those are your two things that you're going to have to do. But my gut feeling is you're not getting anything from the ignition switch itself, and it's probably going through some stupid aftermarket box. And then if you get that figured out, everything else will probably excite and come back to life. But that's where you're going to have to start. We got to make sure we're getting the initial feed from the ignition switch itself to the relay. So. I hate to see you going through this. I know what a pain these are. They can be a real aggravating because you never know, But like I said, your first thing is probably going to wind up being do the pin out with a 12-volt test light while somebody's actually, putting the key into the crank position. If you're getting a signal there, then it's not ignition switch. There could be something with your relay or something coming out of the relay itself. Now, when you turn the key, do you hear that relay click at all, John?
Yeah, it clicks.
You do hear the relay click. Well, then let's go a step further. Either the relay is bad, or either your next step is going to be going to the solenoid on the starter itself. See if it lights up with a 12-volt test light when somebody goes to the crank position. If it does, then, John, your problem might be a defective new starter. Check it out and get back with us and let us know what you find.
Thank you so much, John. That opens up a line for you, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO, or feel free to give Larry a shout about your cars, 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. Mike has given us a call from Orlando about his 2015 Ford. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I got a weird light. It's a mechanic light, like a wrench that came on, and plus it said engine coolant over temperature, but it doesn't seem like it's overheating, and the temperature is still in the middle.
Okay. What kind of vehicle is this, Mike? I know it's a Ford, but give me a little more help.
It's a hybrid, the C-Max.
Okay. And so it's got an engine over temp code stored in the system.
It comes on the dash.
Yeah. Listen, does the light come on when you're driving on the highway?
It usually takes about 25 minutes for it to come on. Not necessarily the highway.
If you're just in town driving around, and the light itself will come on, right?
Yeah, after about 20 minutes or so.
Okay. Is your AC working?
Yep.
Okay. Now, on that one, I'm not real sure if it uses just one or two cooling fans. A lot of those vehicles had two cooling fans. One was for the AC, and the other would be for the radiator itself. One of the first things that I would check with that, Mike, is most people would say thermostat, something like that, not regulating the temperature exactly right. But in your case, if it's coming on in town after it's been ran for 20, 25 minutes, my guess would be that there might be something wrong with a cooling fan. Now, which would be an electric cooling fan that cools the radiator down. Now, even though it's not got to the point where it'll overheat, they've got parameters built in to let you know if the engine is running hotter than it should. Let's say, for an example, the ideal target temp for that motor is 195, and it's getting up to 210 or 212, somewhere around in there. That may be enough to actually turn that light on and let you know that there is, the temperature is running a little bit too hot. Now, a cooling fan, if that is the issue, a lot of these cooling fans, Mike, they're multiple speed fans. If the engine's cool or whatever, or cooler, they might kick on or run at a slow speed. But when it gets up to a temperature that's just a little bit too hot, a lot of times they want that fan to kick on at a higher speed. So these are multi-speed cooling fans. And let's just say, for an example, if the control module that controls the speed of that fan isn't actually running that fan fast enough to keep that temperature down, these are the types of things that will actually happen. So, a mechanic is going to need to check the cooling fan and going to make sure that, it is operating properly. There could be something wrong with the cooling fan where it's actually drawing too many amps and it just can't run fast enough. So these are all things that happen as a vehicle ages. These electrical components that get used a lot, like cooling fans, will actually get to a point to where they'll start running slower because they're just wearing themselves out over the years. And in your case, that's going to be one of the first things I'd tell you to look at. Thermostat-wise, a thermostat could cause a problem like that, but being in town and lower engine RPMs, I would think that if the thermostat was sticking, you would have a higher temperature reading than what you are actually getting now. I think you'd be, the temperature gauge itself would be more to the right than in the middle. I think you're just out of calibration just a little bit, and what makes most logical sense to me would either be a cooling fan control module or the cooling fan itself that just may be drawing too many amps and just not running fast enough to actually keep the engine temperature where the computer system's looking for. I appreciate your call, and get it checked and give us a holler back and let us know what we find.
Thank you so much, Mike. That opens up a line for your question. Hop on with Larry Perry, 844-580-9326 to get on the air today. Your open mic's coming up next on the air. Got Larry Perry, the magic mechanic himself, in studio here answering your questions. The number to call is 844-580-9326, 844-580-WDBO. Larry is offering his automotive expertise to anybody who seeks it. 844-580-9326. Also have the opportunity to send in your question via the open mic in our free WDBO app. Larry, what do you say we dive into these mics and answer away?
Let's go for it.
All right, question number one.
Hey, Larry. Nissan's got a 1.5-liter 3-cylinder turbo engine. What do you think about that?
Well, they've had 3-cylinder engines out for quite a while, believe it or not. A lot of diesels are 3-cylinder, smaller diesel vehicles. Not all of them, in the U.S. Geo, if you remember them, which was a division of GM at one time, they had 3-cylinder engines, and some of the small Chevrolets, I remember years ago, were 3-cylinder engines as well. But they're mostly in like these little Geo Metros and these little small cars. Nissan having a 3-cylinder turbo, if it's just a small car. I mean, a lot of folks, it's amazing when you take a little engine like that and what you put, when you hang a turbocharger or a supercharger on it, the horsepower that you can get out of them. Now, I'm going to give you an example. You take, everybody knows what a Sea-Doo is. It's a personal watercraft, and they've been taking them little 3-cylinder engines that normally put out without any supercharger or turbocharger. They put out about 150 horsepower for a little tiny 3-cylinder engine. Now, let's just take and look at it like this. They can go and put a turbo, or in this case, a supercharger on them, which forces air into the engine. And, they're getting over 300 horsepower out of a small 3-cylinder engine. And you know what? As long as you run good oil in them, they hold up fine, So I can't sit there and beat up on a 3-cylinder engine by no means, So if the engineering is correct on the engine, which it's something new, so time will tell. I don't like to be a guinea pig for anybody's engine. But in this case, if the engineering was done correctly and the motor holds up good, hanging that turbocharger on it just makes it a fun little car, really, is all it boils down to. The rest of it is just all in the lubrication. But, it depends on how the engineering is. I mean, if the engine's engineered well and it's not an oil burner, uses a lot of oil and stuff like that, then, it'll probably hold up and be just fine. I mean, there's probably dozens of people out there listening to the program right now that could probably tell us about it owning a 3-cylinder Geo, from years back in the day, in the 90s. Because it was a very common, very popular vehicle. So 3-cylinder engines has been around for quite a few years, used in a lot of different applications, especially diesels. Kubota tractors use 3-cylinder diesel motors. So they're out there, and they've been used for years. Like I said, if the engineering was done correctly, Nissan may have a winner on their hands. So thanks for the call.
Thank you so much for that open mic. Again, feel free to send them via the WDBO app, free in the App Store or Play Store. Open mic number 2 coming at you in 3, 2.
Hey, Larry, Mark. I had a similar problem to your caller earlier about rodents chewing on your vehicles. I used to park my truck right next to my hedge, and I would get rodents coming in and chewing wires. They would chew my tractors. They would chew my four-wheelers. What I did was I just moved my truck about 10 feet away from that hedge, and now I don't have that problem, it appears. So try that.
Yeah, when it comes to, I don't know. There's really no rhyme or reason. This is the one thing that you can't escape. The insulation that is used on automotive electrical wiring is vegetable based. Now, whether that attracts the rodents to get in there and start chewing and nibbling on this stuff, I have no idea. But it being a vegetable based insulation on this wiring, that may be what's actually creating the attraction for the rodents to chew on the wiring harnesses and stuff on these vehicles. We had a late model Jaguar in here just a little while back, folks. I mean, literally, there must have been a whole family chewing on this car. I mean, they literally eat every wiring harness in this vehicle up. The vehicle was actually totaled, and we're talking about a $70,000, $80,000 vehicle. They totaled the vehicle because every wiring harness in this vehicle was eaten up. They even eaten up the daggone one of the fuse and relay centers in the trunk of the car, and for the life of me, I don't even know how they could get in it. But they did. They must have chewed through metal to get into it. But ate every wiring harness in the vehicle up. And that this is kind of a lesson for anybody out there listening. If you take a car in because it's not doing something right, or it's not starting, or all of a sudden you got crazy electrical problems, you take it to a dealer. Even if the car is under warranty, folks, they're not going to cover this. So at this point, what you have to do is you need to call your insurance company up, and because they will cover a situation like that. Another thing that, since I'm on the subject, I do want to mention to you, just because your vehicle is got rubber tires on it, you would think during the course of a storm it can't be affected by lightning. That is just an urban myth. Folks, listen, your vehicle can be struck by lightning. I'm not going to tell you that you are going to be electrocuted if you're in your car, but I will tell you this: lightning can enter a vehicle and exit. Through it's going to seek a ground, but it can hit a vehicle, and when it does, the car's probably never going to start or run again. It's going to fry every daggone electronic in the vehicle. We just had a Dodge Ram in the vehicle that was really strange. The people had parked it. It ran fine. Storm comes through, and this was later in the year last year. And they towed it into us, of course, this year, and we checked it out, and we couldn't get no communication with anything. And the computer for the vehicle, there's nobody making it anymore. You couldn't even buy one. And so we sent it out, and the guy called us up and started laughing. He goes, "Man, everything in this thing is fried." He goes, "I've never seen anything like this in my life." He goes, "There's no way it could have actually it done this to itself. He goes, because it's a fuse system. You see what I'm saying? But it literally, lightning had traveled through the fuse and relay center, traveled through the computer in the vehicle. I mean, it just took out everything. And that was another one. I guess they're winding up totaling that vehicle out as well. And so, listen, just seriously, you got to remember, if your vehicle, all of a sudden after a big storm rolls through, lightning striking near where you live or whatever, and then all of a sudden your vehicle's going crazy, no matter where you take it to, you need to make sure that you mention that it sat outside the night before or during a really, really, really bad storm, because it is more common than you think. I mean, I here in the last 5 years, I've seen more lightning strike vehicles that just are absolutely crazy, and unless it's an experienced technician that has ran into this before, it can be overlooked. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you don't know that it is an insurance situation, like I said, a lightning strike on a brand new Cadillac or something like that could be a $20,000 or $30,000 insurance claim, and that's the last thing in the world you want to be pulling out of your own back pocket. So you need to make darn sure that this is always mentioned if the vehicle sat outside and there was a possibility that lightning could have hit it. So you just keep that in the back of your mind, and hopefully you never encounter anything like that. But trust me, it does happen.
And our final open mic of the week today comes to us in now.
I've got a question for Larry. I hear him talk about how the Kias and Hyundais aren't exactly the best engines, but they keep coming out like number one with Consumer Reports as being number one SUV, number one this, number one that. Larry, can you tell us what the real deal is? Thanks.
Well, I'll tell you what the real deal is. Now, if it's a 21 and newer vehicle, it might be the best thing since sliced bread. But I'll tell you what, the poor individual consumers that own anything from a 2009 to about a 2021, it is really sickening what Kia and Hyundai has done to the folks here in the U.S. They got lousy motors. They consume oil like absolute insane crazy. Some of them they'll recall because of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration making them recall. I don't know why they're picking and choosing certain years and certain models, because it don't make no sense. They're all junk. You can't keep oil in them. And then they'll tell you, well, okay, you're putting a quart of oil in every 300-400 miles. Well, that's kind of normal. It falls within our parameters. We need to continue doing oil consumption testing for thousands of miles just to put you off. But the reason that the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration is actually making them recall these motors is because if they throw a rod out of the bottom of the engine, it can take out a fuel line. Oil hits the catalytic converter system. The vehicle bursts into flames. Folks, listen, before you buy one of them cars, and I'm just telling you, do your own research. I mean, pull in Kia, Hyundai, engine problems, whatever, and look at what everybody else has dealt with for the last 10, 11, 12 years, and then if you feel like being that type of person, well, I can't get a bad one, I'm probably going to be okay, then so be it. But at least educate yourself and see what's actually going on out there in the industry. And even if you've got a car that has got an engine that they are voluntarily recalling, it might be 6 months to a year before you ever get your car back. I mean, it's a mess out there. And right now, if they were to fix every car that they've got a problem with here in the United States, it would be 15 million vehicles. And Canada is in the same situation. They've got class action suits all over the place on these car companies. You can rank them number one if you want to. You can give them all the 5 stars you want. My opinion is somebody's getting paid under the table if that's what the case is, because their past history does not indicate no 5-star best of anything. If you do have a car that's a late model Kia or Hyundai, at least call a dealer up, give them the VIN number, and ask them if you fall into a recall situation to get a free motor. Other than that, you're going to have to probably wait until some of these class action suits are settled. And by all means, if you pay for it out of your pocket, keep the receipts, because I guarantee you, sooner or later, you're probably going to be compensated for this, one way or the other.
Thank you so much, Larry. We got one more segment coming up after this break. If you want to hop on with Larry, the number to call is 844-580-9326. The number to go right to Larry's shop. Talk to JD. JD will give you a call back when he can. That number at the Magic Mechanic Shop. Write this number down. It is 407-629-2661. 407-629-2661. Schwab giving us a call from Oviedo. Go ahead. You're on with Larry Perry.
How you doing, guys? Hey, Mr. Larry. Actually, my name is Rob, like in Robert.
All right.
Happy to answer you guys.
That's easier. That's easier to say.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Good to hear your voice, sir. I have a Mazda 3, 2011. I like the car. Just recently, I've been experiencing a problem. I get a code that says speed sensor replacement, and I did just that. But now my automatic transmission light comes on. It shifts all the gears, pretty much good to go, except sometimes I get a shudder. But other than that, I can't figure it out. I take it to my mechanic. We put the new one in. Nothing happens. We even looked at the tire pressure sensors because he thought I might affect the code, the readout code or something. But I'm just at a loss, Mr. Larry.
Okay. Yeah, Rob, let me tell you what, this is my experience with these Mazda transmissions. If you change the fluid in these things just by doing a drain and fill, at some point in their life, usually at around between 0 and 150,000 mile, that transmission will usually last forever in those cars. I have very few issues out of the transmissions. I don't care if the car comes in with 250,000 mile. I doubt there's a transmission problem with it. Now, I will tell you this. The transmission control modules that they use for those transmissions are absolute junk. But the transmission itself is usually bulletproof on those cars. I would personally, I'd have to drive the thing with a scan tool attached just to see what the input and output sensors are reading on the transmission. But, if it's an electrical type of shifting, air, whatever, it's not going to surprise me if it's a transmission control module. And this thing actually bolts onto the transmission itself. And then there's a harness that actually plugs into it. The problem that you're going to run into, if that is the case, and it probably is, that's the only thing I ever see go wrong with those transmissions. Nobody makes them anymore. So, and it has to be the exact number that is on your control module in order for it to be compatible. So in a lot of cases, what I have to do is I have to send those out to have them rebuilt. And it's a pretty expensive venture in some cases. But to diagnose it, I'd have to drive it while looking at the data on a scan tool. And then I can tell you whether there's really a speed sensor issue or not. It's most likely going to be in the control module itself. I've been through this so many times with that vehicle. So let us know if we can help you with that. Folks, thanks for tuning in. You listeners, customers, show sponsors are the reason we do the show, and I have a job. If you tune in every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time in Central Florida on 107.3 FM, HD Radio 96.52, and AM 580 worldwide at WDBO.com. And click Listen Live or just tell your smart speaker to play WDBO Radio every Saturday at 3 p.m. If you need help with your vehicle, you can always call Magic Mechanic at 407-629-2661. Visit our website, magicmechanic.com, or you can also email your car questions directly to me, Larry, at magicmechanic.com. Hey, don't forget to check out Magic Mechanic YouTube and hit the subscribe button. And until next week, be safe in and out of your car, and we'll see you back here next Saturday at 3 o'clock.